Hello everyone, thank you for joining us on this edition of the Primetime Newscast on Équinoxe Television live from my headquarters in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. My name is Babla Jonathan. In our top stories in this edition of the news, lawyers of Sisiku, Ayuk Tabe and the other detained leaders of the secessionist struggle in the northwest and southwest regions of the Republic of Cameroon decry what they consider as a travesty of justice. They were speaking today in Yaoundé after the Center Court of Appeal rejected the appeal filed in after the military court sentenced the detained Anglophone leaders to life imprisonment. We hear one of the lawyers in this newscast, and the Minister of Communication and spokesperson of the Cameroon government, Rene Emmanuel Sadi, says that the coronavirus remains a major preoccupation, a major concern for the Cameroon government. He indicated in a press statement today that government's anti-COVID-19 fight has been effective and yielding fruits. Thanks, dear viewers, for joining us on this edition of the news. We begin here in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. At least 2 persons have died following a road accident at Bekoko on the outskirts of the country's economic capital, and 1 person died on the spot. The accident involved 2 vehicles, and of course we have details in this report compiled by Fomi Armstrong Sander.
The accident, according to witness accounts, resulted from a head-on collision between a heavy-duty truck and an 18-seater bus at Bekoko on the Douala-Kongsamba stretch of the National Road number 6.
This camion will cut up. Wait, you come inside town.
The truck left Douala for the Mungu to load sand, while the bus was driving into town from Lum. A cow left a group of others and came into the middle of the road, and in an attempt to dodge, the truck driver collided with the bus.
That's why the accident happened.
The accident left 1 person dead and several others critically wounded, according to his account.
And now 1 person died for this accident. But yeah,
1 person died on the spot, an aging man who died instantly. Others got severely wounded and have been rushed to the hospital.
Please open a wound. They get wounded seriously. They can't rest. They go to hospital.
While others blame it on the phenomenon of transporting large herds of cattle in major highways in Cameroon. Yes, the cattle should be blamed for the accident. They were allowed to move around without control. Others blame it on overspeeding. They are not drivers. They are drug addicts. They drive recklessly. We should have burnt his vehicle. It is a common thing to find travelers and herds of cattle disputing space within major highways and urban peripheries in Cameroon.
The Center Court of Appeal upholds the life jail term slammed on Sisiku, Ayuk Tabe and other leaders of the secessionist struggle in the northwest and southwest regions of the Republic of Cameroon by the military court in the nation's capital, Yaoundé. Today, that verdict came in what has been described as a speedy court session which lasted less than 10 minutes. The lawyers of the detained Anglophone leaders have decried what they consider as a travesty of justice. Take a listen to Barrister Fu Joseph.
Here that this panel came in with their homework cut out for them. First, we cannot reconcile the fact that they came in a few minutes. In a few minutes, they said they were going to adjourn all the cases on the course list because they had been transferred. That means a recusal. They had recused themselves. And then they just turned around in less than 10 minutes. After they had adjourned about 15 cases, they just turned around and called our clients, suspended the session, came back and gave a judgment. The second thing is that it is unheard of anywhere in the jurisprudence of the world that represented people, appellants who were in court with their counsel present, could not be heard. The former bâtonnier stood up to intervene, he was hushed down. The lead counsel Barrister Young stood up to intervene, he was hushed. Two other councils stood up to intervene, and they were cut off. So this was a master plan. They had their work cut out for them, and they needed to do this today, and they did it. It's unconscionable that people who have been condemned for life, they are in prison. They were required for this appeal to put down 5 million francs. 5 million francs that they had to come up with within 10 days. They did that, fulfilled all conditions of appeal, and today their case has been dismissed without a hearing. We think that this is unconscionable, this is despicable, and this is a complete travesty of justice. This is a case where we had 10 solid grounds of appeal, 10 solid grounds of appeal, 60 pages of submissions, and we were going to add those submissions because we just received the record of proceedings. We have not added those submissions. The opposing counsel, the commissaire government, has not provided us with any submissions, so they've not submitted anything to the court at all. And so it's a shock. It's a shocker today that they turn around and deliver judgment where submissions have not been done and where the other side has not been heard.
And as consequences of the Anglophone crisis continue making life difficult for Cameroonians, not only those in the northwest and southwest regions of the country, but equally those in other parts of the country. For over 2 weeks now, it has been impossible for vehicles to leave the Bonaberi Motor Park in the Douala 4 subdivision to Bamenda because of the temporal ban and circulation by the administration, and on the other side by secessionist fighters. And visiting the park this week, activities of transport agencies plying the Douala-Bamenda highway remained grounded, as well as commercial activities in the Bonaberi, and this is provoking a huge financial loss. A huge loss in income by the different transport agencies plying the Douala-Bamenda highway. And of course, this is just one of the consequences of the deepening Anglophone crisis, a crisis that has been pulling on for close to 4 years today. And until now, the situation remains uncertain, remains quite tense in several parts of the two Anglophone regions of the country, with continuous gun battles, fighting between forces of security and defense forces, and armed civilians. We have details, so greater details with Innocent Nazi in this report. We'll come back to that report in a short while. Time for us to talk about the coronavirus pandemic, and the government of Cameroon, through the voice of the Minister of Communication and Government spokesperson Rene Emmanuel Sadi, indicates that the coronavirus remains a major concern, and the government is continuing with its anti-COVID-19 measures. And of course, the virus is still killing people around the world. Listen to Rene Emmanuel Sadi, who was speaking to the press today in Yaoundé.
In accordance with the very high directives of the President of the Republic, His Excellency Paul Biya, echoed by the Prime Minister, Head of Government, His Excellency Joseph John Gute, relating to the intensification of actions to sensitize the people and to engage the various actors in the response chain against the coronavirus pandemic in Cameroon, we deemed it necessary to invite you to this joint press conference at a time when the COVID-19 pandemic continues to claim lives throughout the world. It should be indicated that the pandemic remains a major concern for the government of the Republic. Needless to remind that the coronavirus is still present in our country. Allow me to thank you all for responding to my invitation to take part in this important meeting, which should enable all of you to be sufficiently enlightened on government strategy to fight against the coronavirus, and particularly with the various actions undertaken whose results recorded by our country since March 2020 are in general terms considered satisfactory. The government also avails itself of this communication to appeal to the civic mindfulness of our fellow citizens with regard to both strict compliance with the recommendations of the World Health Organization and strict observance of the main barrier measures prescribed by the government, such as the systematic wearing of masks in public places and social distancing.
Communication Minister Issa Chiruma, or rather Rene Emmanuel Sadi, speaking there, and he said that coronavirus is still present in Cameroon, and this is why public authorities have continued urging Cameroonians and all other persons living on the Cameroonian territory to continue respecting the anti-COVID-19 measures and the sanitation rules of the World Health Organization. Rene Emmanuel Sadi also said that the anti-COVID-19 strategy of the government is effective and has been yielding considerable fruits. Take a listen.
Like in most countries in the world, Cameroon has for a couple of months now been facing the coronavirus pandemic. The national response strategy prescribed by the head of state has enabled our country to effectively respond, at least up till now, to the health and socio-economic setbacks resulting from this serious public health issue. Indeed, it is worth recalling that since the breakout of the COVID-19 pandemic in Cameroon, when the first cases were detected between March 16 and 7, 2020, the government put in place a set of barrier measures to protect the population from contamination and from the spread of this pandemic. In this
Rene Emmanuel Sadi, Cameroon's Minister of Communication and Government spokesperson. Now we take you to the Bonaberi Motor Park in the Douala 4 subdivision, and Equinoxe is going to be looking at the impact of the Anglophone crisis on transport activities in that part of the country's economic capital, and of course the consequences on the income of the transport companies and other persons doing business in and around the motor park. His report.
Close to 2 weeks after Northwest Regional Administrative Authorities and the separatist armed bands issued injunctions prohibiting circulation of motorbikes and vehicles respectively, coupled with the fact that many violators have lost their lives or have cheated to death, most interurban transport agencies plying the Douala-Bamenda road are still on a forceful break, though they are permitted to travel to and fro Bamenda only on weekends.
Since Monday that I arrived here, I left here on Saturday, reaching Bamenda on Sunday in the morning. For me to enter the agency, I discovered that there were too much passengers. So I asked, when I just reversed and entered, they asked me, hey, now the 281 this. I said, no, I know they go back. I just come and come. They say, hey, please, we want to go. We cannot stay here again. They say lockdown will be there. I say, okay, no problem. Let me rest a bit. I rest and took off in the evening. To reach here Monday in the morning, since I arrived here Monday in the morning, I have not gone anywhere. I'm still here at Garoutier Douala. So since then, all the documents of the car, they are getting expiring without the vehicles working. So at least the government is seeing to that. Insurance and visiting, all those documents, the vehicles are parked. People are here crying to go up in Bamenda, but there is no means for us to enter.
It is worth recalling that when two elephants are fighting, it is the grass that suffers.
People are suffering. If you can look at the way vehicles are parked in this agency, it is not because they don't want to work. It's because everybody is struggling to meet up with certain challenges. You can see everywhere there are passengers struggling to travel. They cannot travel because the agency is blocked because of the crisis. I think the government is in the best position to take the people, tell the people what they can do in order to solve all these problems. You now see that everybody, every nook and cranny in this country, people are moving up and down. Some are helpless. People are sleeping in jets and they cannot travel, they cannot meet their own families. And you can see that everybody is just crazy. Nobody knows what he or she is doing, even right up to the government in question.
At the Bonaberry Motor Park, not only the inter-regional transporters are adversely impacted, also taxi drivers and commercial motorbike riders who are often present to pick up passengers to their various destinations as well as to the motor park.
Nous, les pensionnaires qui travaillons dans la gare routière Bonaberry, nous en souffrons tellement parce que
we don't have passengers. Buses don't come in from the northwest region, but only few come from the southwest region.
Quelques voitures du sud-ouest qui arrivent, ceux du nord-ouest, rien ne fonctionne.
Nothing moves at all for us relying on this motor park.
Les pensionnaires qui ne travaillent que dans la gare routière, nous ne pouvons plus parce que nos clients du nord-ouest, franchement, on ne les voit plus, personne ne voit toutes les voitures de Vatican que tu vois là.
The usual busy motor park has transformed to a graveyard within a twinkle of an eye. Buses are lined up, but passengers cannot be spotted. The few seen are traveling to Boya only, except on ghost town days. Other commercial activities in this Bonaberry motor park remain grounded, with families feeling the heat.
This problem of Anglophone is really a problem that we can sit down and talk. If the government can organize another dialogue, that dialogue should be what we call a concrete dialogue, a dialogue that will take everybody to a common table that will understand that the Anglophones are real. The problem of Anglophone is real. It's not a problem that all of us are seeing, because let's see what we can do. I think that dialogue should be something that will take Cameroonians to a common ground, that will take everybody to understand that it is not only, it's not good to give birth to a child and give a wrong name to that child.
Recently, over 10 US senators called on the government of Cameroon to initiate a truly genuine dialogue with aids of the international community to end the Anglophone crisis, which keeps claiming lives and tormenting citizens in the northwest and southwest regions in particular.
Over 50 inhabitants of Pumeye Chebem in the Kunki Division West region of Cameroon, whose houses were destroyed in 1982 during the construction of the Bafoussam-Yaoundé highway, are demanding for compensation. They stormed the office of the Kunki Senior Divisional Officer, begging for their voice to be heard. Details in this report by Immaculate Fogwe.
For over 38 years, since houses built along the Bafoussam-Yaoundé highway, precisely on the Pumeye Chebem in the Kunki division, were demolished by council authorities in order to ease road construction work, the affected families are yet to receive compensation from the government. Some of the 450 families who were forcefully evicted stormed the office of the Senior Divisional Officer of the Kunki division, revendicating. We are among those whose houses were demolished along the Yaoundé-Bafoussam highway. For several years, our parents have been demanding that they should be compensated, but nothing has been done. The head of state on the 8th of December 2018 signed a document ordering that the affected families be compensated. According to the protesters, 43% of those whose houses were demolished 38 years ago have died. Many of them blame the government for their sudden death. After our house was demolished, my father's health deteriorated. Unable to deal with the shock, he passed away a few weeks later. In the absence of the senior divisional officer of the Kunki division, his second deputy, Umaru Buba, promised channeling their plights to the competent authorities. You know, the country is currently facing a health crisis, so we are facing financial problems. But let us hope that something will be done in order to remedy the situation. The losses incurred as a result of the demolition process that took place 38 years ago is estimated at 1.7 billion CFA francs. The government is once more recalled of their promise through this protest action.
Immaculate Fogwe ending the first part of this newscast. Talking Point is up next. Thanks for staying with us in Talking Points. Today we are receiving a journalist from the northwest region of the Republic of Cameroon. Jato Richard works with Radio Hot Cocoa, and he's the public relations officer of the Cameroon English-Speaking Journalists Association. You're welcome, Jato.
Thank you, Babila. Good evening to you, and good evening to viewers of your beautiful TV station, Equinoxe.
Today we're going to be looking at the humanitarian situation in the northwest and southwest regions of the country. Today we are zooming in on the situation in the northwest region of the country. Jato, you are coming from the northwest region. You are a newsman, and you have been nosing news around the northwest region of the country. What is the situation as far as the sufferings of the population who are caught in the situation that is the Anglophone crisis, the armed conflict in the northwest region?
Well, Babila, I think it's first of all important to actually say it's sad. It's very sad. When you talk about the humanitarian challenges the population is going through, it's multifaceted. You know, the health component is even the most devastating. You know, the Northwest has been a region with one of those, renowned hospitals, like the mission hospitals that have often offer very quality health services to her population without undermining, you know, the efforts of government hospitals. And a lot of patients who benefited from the services of these mission hospitals, first of all, had it at a price that was affordable. And you know, health is not just the drugs you give, but it's also the psychological component of, you know, assistance to those who are sick. So many are not able to access hospitals because of the ongoing crisis. Many of the nurses and even medical doctors of some of these renowned hospitals are no longer in the Northwest region. Even when they are called upon, you know, to come and serve, they are not ready. The specialists, there are a lot of children who were delivered with, deformed structures like deformed legs and hands who benefited from services from hospitals. They can't go to those hospitals. Experts used to come from abroad to give them quality, you know, health and assist them even without any finances. All those category of children. I don't want to talk about various vaccinations and the need to visiting clinics by pregnant women. Most of these people are really battered. Then when there are shutdowns, as is currently on in the Northwest region, or particular, because when you talk of the Northwest region, you can undermine the impact of the nerve of the region, which is Bamenda. Once Bamenda is not functioning,
administrative headquarters,
it paralyzes, you know, every other thing. So, in your report just a few minutes ago, you were talking about buses that can't move. There are a lot of parents, children, sick people who want to travel and go beyond to Momo, there is Acha, and all those hospitals, they can't move. So most of them are stressed up. I don't want to even take the component of children who are stressed with a very long period of stay in the house and COVID coming, to make the situation worse.
Before we proceed further to talk about the different vulnerable groups, in particular children, women, and persons living with disabilities. Some of those children, which you indicated earlier, that they were born with malformations, they were born with complications. Medical reports have actually revealed that some of them were born like that because their mothers spent the whole time of pregnancy, the 9 months of pregnancy, or a great portion of the period of pregnancy, in the bushes, not going for antenatal care, not going for any medical follow-up, and so on.
Yeah, of course, you'll be talking about those who are delivered within the context of the crisis that has lasted 4 years. That I understand, but I'm even going beyond to make it more, general, from children who had been suffering with these illnesses before. You are very specific. Yes, in the crisis situation, I may not be a specialist. I may not have the expertise to make comments on what the causes of children with malformation, but I'm more concerned about the fact that the malformations are there. What next? So they can't go to these hospitals because of the prevailing difficulties, and some of them would have benefited. Even when they are on the ground, it's not a problem. But the problem is with the medical experts who have to fly into Cameroon and render the services that requires almost 1,500,000-600,000 francs CFA free to them. They can't have that now because their parents are already in a very battered situation of the crisis. They can't get income. They can't pay even basic food to eat. So they can't give help to the children who badly need it. This is about the children. Those with pregnancy who would not be able to visit medical doctors, antenatal care, to get advice from medical doctors and medical officials on how, to go along with their pregnancy. Most of them are in challenges, a lot of difficulties. How do they get out of this? Children born in that kind of circumstances would have physical problems, and they may also have psychological problems, plus the parents. So the stress would be very long lasting. There are all of this on board,
What is the degree of vulnerability to which parents, notably women and children, and even persons living with disabilities, are exposed to? The degree of vulnerability today?
It's very serious, Babila, because vulnerability is for everybody. You can be moving today upright, and tomorrow you are somebody living with disability. You can't guarantee that your ability will be all through, because there are a lot of persons living with disability who weren't born like that. If you have an accident, you automatically fall under that category, but God forbid. So there are a lot of persons in this category. There are people who are visually impaired. Imagine gunshots and that they are running and you can't run. People just run to different directions. You can even be running to a direction that is not supposed to be, that you are going to an opposite direction when others are going the other, because nobody is there to guide you. Then somebody who has handicap, who can't move, somebody who can't move, the person needs to be pushed maybe in a wheelchair and all the like. Just imagine such a situation. Or you are, for example, you can't hear, you can't talk. Somebody who is deaf and maybe dumb, if I'm not using the right words as it's supposed to be. Right. Such a person, you don't hear the sounds of guns, and maybe others, people, they order you. Soldiers probably tell you, go this way, or the other actors, the fighters tell you, move this way, and you do not get, the direction. You can imagine your situation. So there are a lot of persons in all of this, and it's very deplorable. As a journalist, sometimes, Babila, you cannot get all your lifespan as a journalist only bringing bad news to people. You say 10 people died, a gunshot here, a mother has maybe been shot with a baby here, somebody's hands has been cut this way. You keep talking only negative things. It can cause you, the journalist, to be a negative person. And every time they hear your voice or they see your face, they only see doom. It becomes problematic, even for you, the journalist. You just stigmatize yourself by telling people, anytime you are on TV, they just want to hear something sad. It cannot continue like this. It's becoming so complex, Babila. And people die in the hospital because there are no drugs. A lot of drugs vendors and maybe provision of drug organizations like the Northwest Special Fund for Health and all the like, they have a lot of challenges plowing the roads to various divisions, subdivisions, and hospitals to provide medicines, you know, in various health installations that the villagers badly need. And they need all of this. So it's very holistic, a very big challenge.
A very complex situation.
Yeah.
You have also been visiting and talking with some internally displaced persons who are in Bamenda, persons who have escaped their villages because of violence, some of whose villages have been burnt down. The Center for Human Rights and Democracy, in its last report, indicated that more than 200 villages have been burnt down. Those people who have escaped and are now IDPs in the town of Bamenda, what have they been telling you?
Well, what the first thing is they need to eat. Is very basic. I don't want to talk about education, and they need health, because this is very vital. They need shelter. And you understand with me that most people talk about the crisis, especially for the Anglophone communities. Maybe before I go to the Anglophone community, to actually appreciate most of the Francophone brothers and sisters in the other parts of Cameroon who have been very hospitable to these IDPs, because there are a lot of Francophones who have made their homes available. They have created provision for IDPs, and they are being hosted. They even share, you know, the little that they have with them. We must use your television channel to appreciate such attitude. But to say that a lot more persons who are even suffering are Anglophones who live in other towns away from Northwest, Southwest, Anglophones, in as far as this crisis is concerned. And why am I saying that? Because most of these IDPs are hosted by them. And when they come to their homes, their salaries or income does not change, because there's no new activity that has changed to give them the opportunity to have more money than they used to have. But then the amount of money they have to take care of their family as was planned, and they need to go beyond to take care of the IDPs in their homes. Then there is a problem of social cohesion. How do you live in your house with your wife and your children, and the next day you have to live with your wife, your children, some other person with his wife and the children?
10 people, 15
there
people.
would be bound to be friction. The hospitality can be for few days, and after people's colors will start coming out because there is stress. So a lot of you people living in Douala, Yaoundé, Bafoussam are even more stressed up than in Bamenda. Then to go back to Bamenda and other areas around Bamenda town, which is a bit, you know, calm comparatively to other villages. To be very honest, you Babila, you may hate to meet an IDP. It comes a time when you can't stand to understand that in Cameroon, a child has not eaten from morning till 4 p.m. and that the parents, they still have to struggle and let them have one meal at 5 p.m. and go to bed, sleep, get up in the morning, drink water, and wait for 5 p.m. for some new meal to come up. Now there is lockdown in Bamenda. Imagine that you are in the house, you are a mother, widow. I'll take that as an example because it's more vulnerable. You are a widow, you have about 5 children to cater for. Okay, you roast maize at Mobilquen, you roast plum at Mile 2, and some at Foncha Junction selling maybe granite is perishable. You need to sell, and by the end of the day, you take the profit and you cook for your house and then you take the rest of the capital to buy more perishable. But you have to stay home for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 month. How do you feed the children?
Comes to complicate the whole thing.
You can only push young girls into some kind of attitude. You can push people to be very funny. These are the realities on the ground. So talking with an IDP now in Bamenda, you need a lot of courage not to have some type of information. If you have a heart that is soft, a lot of Bamenda, the population of Bamenda, every household has a story. Whether you are a separatist, you are a military, you are a Northwest, one of those in the community or whosoever, everybody is affected. Everybody. By virtue of host, by virtue of pressure, of expenditure, lack of food, accommodation, stress. So I wonder how much of work that can be efficient, that people will do with all the stress that is on the population. It's very complex.
And with all these sufferings which you are describing, the United Nations Development Program is coming with the 3-year recovery plan, which is within the framework of the presidential plan of reconstruction and development of the northwest and southwest regions of the country. But many seem not to agree with this project. Many are simply against it. Others are highlighting the complex situation and putting question marks on the feasibility of such a project at this point in time. What's your take on that?
Well, those who think that the United Nations Development Program plan is not called for now, what do you want me to tell such people? It's an opinion. Everybody has an opinion depending from what perspective you are seeing the crisis and what in future you seeing as far as the crisis is concerned. Everybody has a perspective. But if I were to make a statement on the United Nations Development Program's plan, I think the first thing I will tell you, Babila, is that the United Nations is multifaceted in her organs. You have the United Nations Development Program, you have the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugee, you have the Food and Agriculture Organization, the World Health Organization, UNESCO, UNICEF, different arms with very different missions. But I think the mission where Northwesterners and Southwesterners or Anglophones are more concerned with is the Security Council of the United Nations that has probably the mandate to a political solution to the problems in the Northwest, Southwest. But when the United Nations Development Program, which is an arm of the UN, comes up with such a plan of action with regards to their dream for social cohesion, economic recovery while the crisis is on, I can't make any statement on that because I don't have an option. A child who has been displaced with the mother, they need shelter. People need to go to the hospital. Children, while the war is on, need education. All of that. So if I were to say no to the plan, I don't have the powers to say that you know so well. I would have loved to say no and probably give a solution to those children who are all without education. Children need vaccination, they need health, people need to keep moving. When a road is bad, a bridge is bad, and maybe they need to do a new bridge, it can be very difficult to block traffic and construct the bridge for the next 5, 6, 8 months that people do not move. So probably that is where the UN is, looking at the fact that there should be some economic recovery. But I think the population, those who are for a political solution to this problem before construction, you can't waive what they are saying. It's important because they are seeing that all what you are going to destroy, has been destroyed, that requires construction, may be subjected to that destruction again after construction. That is why on a lighter mode, I think it is important for all the UN arms to holistically solve the problem by sitting together. Yes, we want to construct. You UNICEF, they want children to go to school. United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization want to restitute the tradition, the cultural identity of the people. All of these organs can sit together as a whole and come out with a policy that will be acceptable and favorable, you know, to the plans that each of the organ has for the Northwest, Southwest. Because what you and I want is that people should smile again tomorrow and have a peaceful community. It's important.
Right. It should be indicated that the United Nations Development Program says that it's going to assess the situation on the ground, the needs of the people affected or the victims, and provide material and a little financial package for themselves to do the reconstruction as far as homes and other minor issues are concerned. For roads, that is yet to be decided whether it's going to be done by which company, the military engineering unit, and so on. But all is that the United Nations Development Program and the government are looking forward to the execution of this project on the ground, beginning from what is qualified as blue zones, areas where the tension has reduced. Jato, yes.
Yes, obviously, as you have rightly said, I think it's important for all the actors to be looking at, you know, communicating, because both the fighting parties should now ask themselves, if I were on the other side, and they should also look on the ground and see the challenges that the people are going through and come up with something which is quick. I think so.
All right. Jato Richard, journalist with Radio Hot Cocoa in Bamenda, and PRO, Public Relations Officer of the Cameroon English-Speaking Journalists Association. Thanks for joining us today.
It's me to say thank you.
Thanks, dear viewers, for staying with us. Goodbye.